Hey, everybody, Tanner Larson here, and welcome back to the Optimized Ecommerce Podcast. Good to see you guys again. And today we are going to be talking about something pretty cool, actually how a pop-up made an extra $90,000 for one of our clients. And to tell this story, I've got my buddy Jeremy Friedland on here. Jeremy is part of the BGS revenue optimization team. He also runs our e-commerce business blueprint coaching program for those people who are trying to get their store from startup off the ground and into profit. So he runs that entire coaching program for us, and also is on the RO team. So he works with our big clients, and basically he's just a man of many hats, and he's been a friend of mine for a long time, was actually a customer first, and then later on decided he wanted to join the BGS team, which was awesome. We've got a lot of some of our most favorite team members have matriculated in that way. They come from being a customer of BGS or a customer of mine from before, who then decided they want to work with us, which is just basically the highest compliment we could ever get. So that's pretty cool. So Jeremy, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here, and definitely glad to have made that transition and throughout the whole process. And I wouldn't want to work with anybody else. So it's awesome to be here.
Appreciate that. So let's just dive right into it, right? So I got to get the number right. Basically, you guys made an extra $90,872.71, just to be totally right? As if 90 grand wasn't enough. It's 90,871, blah, 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 right? So you did that, and you used a pop-up, and you did it in a way that really goes against most of our conventions in terms of core revenue optimization principles. But this is a perfect example of, testing something out, and in the right cases, you can do something. You can use a pop-up in this way, right?
Right. Yeah. So what was happening?
Give us the background on it, so we can kind of get into it.
Sure. So I was working with a client of ours who sells a power massager, which obviously there's tons of them out there. You can find them all over the place.
These things, guys, are like the big guns that with a knob on them that you hit on your muscle, and they go, and they like jar you to death.
Yeah.
They work, but it's not like a little massager. It's a big one.
It's a big one, and it's really powerful. They had two versions of them. One was a kind of an entry level, which was still $250, and they had a higher end one that had more features and stuff like that, different speeds, a bunch of extra features on it, but it was twice the price. So it was $500 versus $249, and the majority of people obviously bargain shoppers, and they didn't necessarily know what they were getting into, and didn't know necessarily what the difference was between the pro, the higher end version and the lower end version. And more people were buying obviously the cheaper version, but they wanted to sell more of the higher end version of this particular massage gun, obviously, because the margins are way better. It doesn't cost that much more to manufacture the nicer one. So they were making a ton more money, but they didn't know how to get it in front of people, because most people were going to the homepage and just seeing the cheaper version and clicking on that and saying, well, heck yeah, I'm going to buy the cheaper one because I don't really know the difference.
Yep.
Massage gun is a massage gun. So my idea was like, hey, why don't we tried a bunch of other stuff. We tried to do, upsell, in the checkout and, all this kind of stuff, but it's not one of those things where you're selling a complimentary item. You're either getting one or the other. So essentially, I just said, I know this, like you said, I know this goes against everything that we typically teach, but why don't we try a pop-up in the cart? Mm-hmm. So essentially what would happen is someone would go to the power massager page, the lower end version, and they would click add to cart. And when they clicked add to cart, it would immediately show a pop-up. There was like 0 to 0. It was like less than a second. It would pop up immediately. And it'd show them, hey, would you like to buy this higher end version, this nicer version, for only $150 more? So they would save $100 on the price of the nicer version, the higher end version. And then the pop-up essentially said, this is why it's different. This is what makes it better. It's got, all these different speeds, these different modes, all these extra features to it, longer battery life, et cetera. So, and now you can get it for this price, but only for, this is the only time you're going to see this offer. So essentially, if they said no, if they said yes, it would automatically switch it out into the cart and swap it for the higher end version. And if they said no, they wouldn't see the message again. So if they came back to the if they changed their mind and decided to come back to the store like a couple hours later and tried to add that product to the cart again, they would not see that message again. It's literally,
so it's a true one-time offer, but as a pop-up, and it's pre-cart. So when they click the add to cart button, that pop-up is firing immediately before the cart really loads. And then they're seeing this offer. And it's interesting because you're not only, you're basically, the offer is you're saving them money by getting them to spend more money at the same time. Right. So it's kind of So how did you guys like position that? I mean, you explained it, but like to make that work, like what was the thought process to come up with how you got that verbiage and that offer to work?
Yeah. So we did this a lot with some post-purchase surveys to find out what was most important to the people that bought the higher end version. So we did a survey to people that bought the higher end version to find out what features were most important to them. Like why did they buy that higher end version over the other one? And so essentially we took those answers and put them inside of the pop-up to say, hey, this is why this is better. The reason that I thought it would work was because they were showing intent, right? So if they were to go to the other power, the cheaper version, and it just popped up automatically, that wouldn't make any sense. They'd be like, well, no, I'm on the cheaper page. Why are you showing me this more expensive deal? But by them clicking the add to cart button, they're showing intent that they want to buy that item. So their mind's already in the frame of mind, like, yes, I'm interested in purchasing this item. And so by showing them the, kind of the luxury version of it for, $100 off, they were, they had that opportunity to say, oh man, because everyone wants the nicer version, right? When you go to a car lot, you're deciding between, you go and buy a Chevy Tahoe and you're like, ooh, I really want the LTZ version with the leather and the entertainment system and stuff like that, but I can't really afford it. So I'm going to go for the midline with cloth seats and, stuff like that. But if you were to go and say, hey, you could actually get, the leather LTZ entertainment system, all this stuff for just $1,000 more than the baseline, people be like, heck yeah, I'm going to get that. So kind of the same mentality. They get the luxury version for a much better price.
Yep. And, from a buyer psychology standpoint, and this is, more of a subconscious thing in the shopper's mind, but what you're doing in this way is you're trying to, you're not trying to just upsell them, but you're literally trying to give them what they truly want. And it's like, hey, we've looked at what our customers want. We've post-surveyed them. What's in the pro feature is what they truly want. But obviously they want the cheaper price. So, hey, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to help you out, like give you this opportunity. If you really want the cheap one, cool. But we know you want these features and this stuff. So today only, we're going to give you a discount on it. Right. So in the buyer's mind, it's like, oh, that's really cool of it. Nobody feels like, oh, you're selling me.
Right.
Because you're not doing it in that salesy kind of way. You're doing it in like hey, just want you to be aware, like, here's the difference and here's why you may want to do this. And if you do, we're just going to make it easy on you and give you a discount. So it almost lets people be the exception to the rule, right? Which everybody wants to be the exception. And
it really is a better massage gun. Like I own both of them. I own the cheaper version. I own the more expensive one. I actually have two of the more expensive ones. And it really is a much better tool. So you're really doing them a favor by offering them a better option for the cheaper price. So it's a win-win.
So clearly this worked. What was the take rate on people who, would go to the cheaper version and then see the pop-up and take it? What was the take rate on the pop-up?
Yeah. So it was about 20%. It's about 20.
Good.
Yeah. 20% of people would take it. Had an overall conversion rate of 14.75%. So almost 15%.
The people who took the higher priced offer, the pop-up offer, converted at 14%.
Almost 15%. Yeah.
Almost 15%, that's amazing in and of itself. So that tells you a bunch more stuff, guys. Like if someone takes that offer and then the conversion rate stays about the same on the store or stays in that same range, then it's not as well perceived by the customer. The fact that the normal conversion rate on that store is what, 4-ish?
No, it's about 2.5 to 3, depending on
2.5 to 3. Okay. So, and now the people who took that offer are converting at 14%. What that's telling you is you're answering all the buyer objections. You're actually exceeding the buyer's expectations, and you're making them feel incredibly comfortable. So by offering them a higher priced upsell and a discount at the same time for the right reasons, 15% conversion rate. So that's awesome, dude. That's great.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew it worked, but I didn't know it worked that well.
Yeah, almost five times as well. And it was the cool part about it is that at that price point, they also get free shipping. So it was a double, basically, because the shipping on it was, it's a pretty heavy device. So it's, shipping on it's a pretty decent amount too. So they actually saved the money on the shipping as well. So they got a kind of a double bonus.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And so it's one more thing that ticks it up over the top. And so guys, not only did they make more money, but the people who did that also converted at a higher rate. So, you continuously fine tune that, and that, which would something like that, guys, in 90+% of our tests would have failed. Okay. On other stores. It just so happens that the right combination could be created based on all the right factors. And that's why it worked. If you were on could this work on another store? Yeah. You could probably do something like this on a print on demand store by if they're buying the Gildan shirt, you could have a pop-up that allows them to get the premium shirt for, a little bit more, and explain hey, here's the difference in what you're getting. We want to make sure you're happy with what you're getting.
Yeah.
But you have to position it the right way. Just adding a pop-up upsell, even with a complimentary offer or whatever, which this is not typically something that's going to work. So I don't want you guys to listen to what Jeremy's saying and run out there and be like, okay, I'm going to add a pre-cart pop-up, because most of the time it doesn't work. What we're showing you is here's an outlier. Here's a very specific use case of where it did work very well. And if you can model that and figure out some way to do it, then great. But I just want to caution everybody not to think that, oh, well, Jeremy said it, so let's go out and do it on every store, right?
Yeah. It's not going to work for every single situation. You have to really think through the process and find out what products this could work for. And you might have some products that'll be great for. But yeah, there's a bunch of different ways you can use it. But like Tanner said, it's not going to work in every single situation.
Yeah. Now I want you to kind of go back to this, because you mentioned it, but I want you to talk a little bit more about it, which is, people are typically sneaky, right? They're not always on the up and up. So they're going to try to, they're going to try to get it right somehow. Now I know you said something about, it only shows once or whatever else, but how did you guys mitigate that and, keep people on the up and up and make sure that it was truly the offer that you said it was? Sure.
So this actually came through someone being sneaky. So when you run a test, it's hard to think about every single variable and every single thing that's going to happen within that. That's why it's really important to track your data, using your Lucky Orange or Hotjar to see what people are doing, setting up your Google Tag Manager so that you know what actions people are taking. And so this actually came about by someone being sneaky. So they found out a way. And by the way, this all requires a developer. So there's not like an app or anything for this. You have to go and hire a developer to get this thing done. Luckily, we have awesome developers at BGS that we handled it. So essentially, someone added it to their cart. So they said yes to the offer. And so typically in the cart, there's a picture of the item. Well, the picture of the item is typically clickable. So if you click on the picture, most times it'll go back to the product page, right? Mm-hmm. So this happened. I didn't think about that particular part of it. And so someone went back to the product page and ordered 4 of these things at the discounted price. So then of course the owner was like, what, how did this even happen? I was like, I don't know. So went back, watched the Lucky Orange, found out what happened, and made it so that it was hidden. So essentially what we had our developers do was hide it make it not clickable, essentially. Mm-hmm. So we hid the item, even with the store search. If they went onto the search bar in the store, they couldn't actually, if they typed in, this upgrade or whatever the name. Find the discounted version of the Pro one. They can't find that. Yeah, they couldn't find it even by searching. So because by default, guys, that would show up in the product category or catalog, right? So it would show up in your category pages, or like you said, if you click on the product from the cart, it'll take you to that product. So you have to be aware of those things. Yeah. So if you hit collections all, typically that would show would show in that item. So you have to hide it from the collections, and you have to hide it from search and stuff like that. Essentially, you're hiding the product from being viewed on the store.
Unless it's in that one specific use case.
Right.
Yeah. And that's interesting because, it may be a good deal, they want to do it for every person each time, but it doesn't behoove them to let the person buy 4 at that price because the margin is not necessarily that much better. And, typically in that case, someone's probably trying to do something sneaky on the other end of it as well. It's probably not, they need 4 pro massagers.
Yeah. In those situations, they're typically buying them and reselling them.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't need to help people do that.
No. Yeah. So there's just something to keep in mind. There's always going to be someone that's going to try to work the system, and kudos to them for trying to be innovative and trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But fool me once, shame on
yeah.
me. So
totally.
Yeah.
So I know we talked about a couple, like I just gave the example of the print on demand thing, but, or the apparel stores, but what are some other use cases where you think this thing could work pretty well?
Sure. So there's EnoSups is actually a supplement brand that I take. And EnoSups actually does a pretty good job of this. They don't do the same thing, but it's very similar. So when you add let's say I wanted to add their thermogenic to my cart, I add the thermogenic, it'll actually say, hey, you can actually get our fat burning bundle for 35% off. And it comes with this, and this product. And you're only going to be spending, $20 more, $30 more, or whatever. So that's a great way to do that as well, especially with supplements when you have ones that work well together. Mm-hmm. If you have any supplements that work really well together, or products that work really well together, and you have the margin, that's another key item, is that you have to think about whether you have the margin to make it work.
Yes.
Right. If you don't, it doesn't do you any good if you're giving the product away or taking a loss. Right. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure you have the margin to make that offer really good, but can work really well. Like I said, with supplement bundles, it can work really well if you have like bedding. So if you have like anything that can be an upgrade. So think like Brooklinen is like a luxury kind of bedding store, and they have their their luxe collection, they have their basic and stuff like that. So if you went in there and bought some basic sheets, which are still very comfortable, by the way, but you added the basic and it said, hey, why don't you upgrade to our luxe for only $50 more? That would be a no-brainer, because the luxe is like just amazing. So that could be a use case where you could do basically anything where you have a core offer and then a premium offering. It would work really well for in any of those cases. So the thing you have to be good about is explaining why it's better. So you can't just say, hey, you should buy this upgraded packet or this better version. You have to be able to tell why it's better and speak the customer's language. So that's why doing like post-purchase surveys comes in really handy to find out why people are buying your premium item. And once you gather enough data and you see repeated answers, then you can really say, okay, like 5 people or 10 people answered said the same exact thing, or 100 people said the exact same thing as to why they bought this item, essentially. Mm-hmm. So if you do those kinds of things and get some really good data and feedback from your customers, then it's going to be way easier to sell an upgraded item. Yep.
Another way that this works we use this during post-sell most of the time, guys, but Jeremy's spot on with all those type of upgrade things. But when there's a process called a basket analysis, and Shopify does like a really weak version of that for you in your reporting section. But a basket analysis is basically you download all your sales data in an Excel spreadsheet and use some digging, and you figure out what percentages of people who buy product A wind up buying product B, or people who wind up with product A and B buy D, E, and whatever. You find things on front-end purchases. You find things on, hey, people who buy product A typically wind up buying from us 3 or 4 other products. You can learn a ton from doing this. It's a great data mining thing. It's very tedious, but the value is huge. Now, from that, we would always do this looking for upsells. And one of the things we would do is it's like, man, 50% of the people who buy product A buy product C, and whatever time frame it is. And we would actually use that as the upsell. And we would say something like 76% of the people who bought the product you just bought. So let's say I bought this chapstick, 76% of people who bought the chapstick also buy our sunscreen moisturizer So chances are you might like it too. Here's a special deal on it. And you have to use legitimate statistics. It's not cool to lie about it. But if you find things like that, you can do that. And people are like, oh man, if a lot of people are doing this, there must be something there. Maybe I want to try it too. And they're giving me a deal. Boom. So that's usually post sell. But an angle like that could work potentially on that pop-up as well. Especially if you're going to be able to give them a really good deal and you like, hey, the vast majority of our customers, whatever percentage it is, always buy this after they buy the chapstick. And rather than have to pay shipping twice, why don't you grab this now? We'll give you a discount on it and you get free shipping or you don't or whatever, and only have to pay one shipping charge. So you could actually make them a very good offer in that same kind of thing. I typically would do this post-purchase, but I hadn't thought about using it as a pop-up until we just started having this discussion right now, because technically it could work. It would be worth testing.
For sure.
But on a random point there, Jeremy, like we talked about this a little bit in terms of like, you need to make sure that it works, but why don't you kind of go over a little bit, like why we don't use the pop-ups to interrupt the buyer's journey in most cases because of the adverse effects that it has?
Yeah, sure. So typically most people don't want to see a pop-up. It interrupts, as Tanner said, it interrupts the buyer's journey. So anything that interrupts the buyer's journey, they have to think about, which is extra cognitive load, which means they're, instead of just going through and saying, I'm going to add this to the cart and I'm going to go to checkout and I'm going to add, it's a streamlined process typically. So when you interrupt that, it's a pattern interrupt and they have to think about what they're doing. And for lack of better words, you don't want them to think about what they're doing. You want them to just find your product, buy it, and get it shipped. And so you have to really think about what you're doing, what you're interrupting their pattern with. And the most important thing is, like Tanner said earlier, it's not going to work for everybody. So it is an outlier. It is something that you have to put a lot of thought into, what products would work for it. And the most important thing is you have to make sure that it's working. So that requires you paying attention, because a lot of people, and Tanner can attest to this too, we talk about this all the time, people will add like an upsell app to their flow process or whatever and be like, oh my gosh, like 10% of people are taking the upsell, or 20% of people are taking the upsell, but their conversion rate is tanking. And they're just not paying attention to that. So those are things to pay attention to. Just because the upsell is working doesn't mean that your overall revenue is better. So you want to really make sure to pay attention to your analytics and pay attention to your data to make sure that the offer, that just because people are taking your offer, you want to make sure that your conversion rate is also improving or staying the same. And
that's really and we talk about this a lot when it comes to like in-cart upsell apps, which we typically say no, don't do. That's why we develop our own stuff to do it. But guys, I can't stress how important what he just said is. And this is one of the downsides of Shopify's reporting dashboard, is that it only gives you what we consider primarily vanity metrics. It's not giving you the deep data. It's not really it's not giving you revenue per user. It's not really filtering out any of the other traffic that shouldn't be involved. Like as an example, every time you visit your store, Shopify counts that as a user. But you don't count as a user because you're probably visiting your site zillions of times. So your conversion rate might actually be higher than what you think it is, because you and your team are all, bloating the visit count. So there's things like that. But on a deeper level, this happens a lot with any kind of like AOV boosting type technology, whether it's an app or whatever. And Jeremy talked about it, where yes, your revenue or your arrow goes up on your average order value dashboard. And it's like, it's green and you're like, yes, like, look, our average order value is up. And you might even see your conversion rate is like a little bit down, but you're like, oh man, it's just a bad traffic day or whatever. But if you're using Google Analytics and Tag Manager the way that we do and the way we talk about, you're tracking all that data. You may see that like, hey, my initiate checkout is down. My reach checkout, I have this massive 80-90% drop from the cart to the checkout. And it's because of that pop-up. So people, yes, your average order value is up because of people who are taking it are getting through, but you're pissing off so many other people that they're dropping off and abandoning after the cart. Another thing a metric you should be really paying attention to is revenue per user. Mm-hmm. Okay. And your revenue per user is, let's say it's $3 per user. And then you add this upsell type functionality or order bump functionality that's not done correctly. AOV goes up, you're excited, but your revenue per user goes down to 265. So are you making more money? No, you're losing money, but you have no idea because Shopify doesn't tell you that stuff. So you need to be really in your data and making sure, and don't trust something at the surface level. You got to dig deeper. And that's one of the things like Jeremy had to do with this massage offer, right? It had to make sure that it wasn't like you can get false positives.
Right.
And I really want you guys to realize that how important that is. It's not just in upsell stuff. It's in anything you do.
Yeah.
It may give you a lift here, but it may cause a decrease here. And you have to make sure that if it does cause that decrease, that the lift outweighs the decrease. And sometimes that's the case, like lowering your price lowers your total average order value. But if your conversion increases to offset that, it's valuable. Right. But you have to be careful with that.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I always say, don't look at like Shopify data is great for a quick glance to see how the day is going, but you should be in your analytics every day, looking at what's happening and seeing, especially when you launch a new test or launch a new pop-up or basically make any changes on your website whatsoever, you need to make sure that change is having a positive effect. Mm-hmm. And obviously sometimes you can tell right away, depending on your traffic, but sometimes if you're a lower traffic store, it's going to take, a week or two or sometimes longer to figure out whether that change has a big enough effect to positive or negative. So
yeah, you do need some statistical data there. It can't be a 5 sales came through. I know what the answer is. You need to let it build. Typically, just from a rule of thumb, 100 sales, if you're not running a lot of traffic and you can't make statistical significance, 100 sales is a good rule of thumb to at least get a gut feel of whether something's working or not. Now, if you're not making even that many sales, it's a little bit harder for you to know if it is. You're going to have to really, really pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah. And how many internet marketers, come out with a new course because they sold 5,
Totally. Oh, proven system. Yeah. Proven system.
Yeah. Just statistical significance is, if like Tanner said, if your store doesn't have enough traffic to reach that, then just go off of either 100 sales or, just pay really close attention to what the numbers say and go off of that. So,
yeah, absolutely. So this is good. This is a lot of great stuff. An easy tidbit that people can wrap their heads around, but any last words of wisdom or things you want to share before we wrap up?
Yeah. I would say be creative. This obviously was a very unconventional thing that I did. And most people would have said, do not do that. Like, what are you thinking? Don't do something like that. So test things out because you never know what the outcome is going to be. Get a developer that you can trust, or use a site like StoreTasker or something like that there's lots of good Shopify developers on, and start coming up with some good ideas or some just ideas that you think might work and test them out because you never know what is going to work and what's not going to work. And if you can come up with something that's going to make you an extra $90,872.71 or more, that's a win.
Absolutely. And, guys, it's on one product. They're still selling other products, right? They just now they have gotten a boost on one product line. Now you can do different things for different products to get similar results or different things, but it doesn't have to be a store-wide thing. Okay. So don't try to look at things in such a macro picture, kind of get granular and go, hey, this product, this is, and how can I maximize this product? Whether it's an upsell, whether it's something post-purchase, whether it's a bundle or whatever else. And if you want to do the bundling thing that Jeremy was talking about, like offering like, hey, you bought this product or you're adding this product to cart, but you have a bundle with these, there are some apps out there that will allow you to kind of automate the process of that. So you don't necessarily have to code it from scratch with a developer. But if you have a bundle, or if you see people buying products A and B, but they're not buying C, create a bundle of A, B, and C and try to get people to buy the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Or get them to buy product C as an upsell post-purchase and say, hey, you already got the first 2, maybe you should get the third one so you can get the full effect.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of great stuff there.
I'd say one more thing is, and you actually just kicked in when you were talking about this. If you decide to do something like this, like a pop-up or something like that, for God's sake, don't do it on every single product in your store. You don't want your customers going to every single product, clicking and seeing a pop-up, clicking and seeing a pop-up. Yep. So just really dial it into one product that you want to make it a premium offer or whatever, a bundle or something like that. But yeah, just don't drive your customers crazy with pop-ups everywhere.
Absolutely. All right, guys, this is a great episode. Thank you so much, Jeremy. What I need you all to do who are listening right now is make sure you're subscribed, guys. Whatever you're listening to right now, make sure you click that subscribe button. Also, hop over to our YouTube channel. This is a video podcast. So a lot of times we're sharing things on video or on the screen that you may want to see later. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also on the YouTube channel, Jeremy, myself, and other team members are releasing multiple videos a week on specific training topics that apply to optimizing your store and making it rock. So if you need links to all of that stuff, just go to buildgrowscale.com/podcast. You can also get the show notes there, links to the YouTube channel, the blog, and all of the other stuff that we got going on. So guys, thank you very much. Leave us a review too. If you like this podcast, whatever your platform you're on, leave us a review, let us know, and then tell us what other topics you'd like us to cover, because this show is for you, right? Jeremy and I already know this stuff. We don't need to talk to each other about it. We're doing this for you. So if you enjoy it, let us know, and we'll see you in the next episode.